And just like that, abracadabra, alakazam, hocus pocus, presto, Trump supporters are now back to believing that Christian moral value matters in a leader. Forget the fact that there's absolutely no way they could have put this level of a memorial together in 10 days without some advance notice. That's another video for another day. We had 90,000, some say over 100,000 overflow. People show up, just leave work, just at a moment's notice, drop everything, and just take off to Arizona for what was a cross between a revival and a political rally. It's very odd because it was only 5 minutes ago I had people telling me, well, Florida Maki, there's just sometimes when you need a strong leader that you have to look past the moral failings and go for the strike. Really? Really? Was that the case with Charlie Kirk? Was that the case? See, I've heard him say things that I completely agree with, and I've heard him say things that I don't necessarily agree with. One way or the other, he was a man, I'm a man, we each have our own path to walk. But does it matter? Or does it not matter? I guess we'll never know, really. But it was a very odd thing, a very strange thing to see sparkler fountains at a memorial for the death of a man. And what really kind of got to me a little bit was this woman, and God bless her, pray for her. She's lost a loved one. She's got children to raise. She said that she forgave the man that has allegedly been accused of doing this. Well, I don't know that he's asked for her forgiveness. See, I think we're confusing some words, tolerance, forbearance, and forgiveness. I don't think the young man would ask for forgiveness because I don't think he did it. But nevertheless, criminals do not obey laws. See, this is what happens. This is what happens when people get caught up in their emotions over something and they stop thinking. And not that people close to the man shouldn't be emotional, but the rest of us, those of us who just perhaps listened to Charlie Kirk once in a while or knew of him, getting involved in this emotionally is going to be a trap. And that's the basis, the fundamental basis of every psychological operation that has ever been run by the military or by the government. The first thing you have to do is get people emotional about it, going all the way back to 9/11. You have to get people emotional about it. That's why they had to take every other piece of programming. Remember 9/11? Even the kids' channels. They had to shut off the kids' channels and show nonstop reruns of those buildings collapsing to get people emotional. Then they had country songwriters writing songs. Where were you when the world stopped turning? All this stuff. Had to get people all emotional about it so that nobody would think. If you'd like to get read in on these tactics and techniques, would love to have you at the Florida Maki Patreon channel because that's the focus of it. We take the gloves off and we say, look, here is how they do it. Here is the tactics. Here are the 24 cognitive biases, the 24 logical fallacies that every single human being on the planet suffers from. And you can get rid of those if you know about them. You can get past them. If you'd like to join us, there's 4 levels over there. Whatever God puts on your heart. McKee Foot Soldiers, Need to Know Roundtable, Unit Commanders, Brigade Commanders. We got a huge group over there. We'd love to have more. God bless all of you who have already. Thank you so much for being there. Folks, I've never been more convinced. Never been more convinced in my life that this kid's a patsy. There's no way the kid did it. I mean, now we're starting to see. People are saying, hey, wait a minute. Let's go shoot some things with a 30-06 and see what happens. And people are shocked. But now you're in a quandary. Now you're in a quandary because if you question the narrative, now you're questioning 100,000 Christians. If you question the narrative, now you're questioning the people in government that arranged all of this and took part in all of this. And you're seen as not being a patriot. You're seen as not loving your country or not honoring God. You see what they've done here? You see the game that they've played? See, there was this, who remembers this meme? When the bullet misses, the intended target. God saved me for a purpose. Well, clearly, God's purpose for Charlie Kirk was over. God just decided not to intervene. That it was more important to keep this guy alive than this guy. This whole predestination game. I bet a lot of people forgot about that. Oh, yeah, that's right. When it was only Trump's ear, it was God intervened. Well, apparently God doesn't care about people that speak his word. People that go out and try to show people the Bible and lift up the Bible, as opposed to somebody who couldn't probably quote one scripture. And it hit me the other night about 3 o'clock in the morning who these people are. And yes, this is not a photoshopped picture. This is a real picture that Donald Trump and Melania Trump posed for a while back. You know who these people are? They're a reincarnation of the Medici. The Medici ruled papal Europe, Catholic Europe, for almost 400 years, starting in the 1400s, all the way into the 1700s, through money and influence and murder and corruption. The Medici, there were 4 Medici popes. Some say Medici, I'm not really sure, I don't know if that necessarily matters. But they silenced people too. They silenced their opposition in a way that I don't think we've ever seen. This is, of course, a quote from Tyrion Lannister, Game of Thrones. When you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world you fear what he might say. How many of you out there who question the narrative about this whole event with Kirk, how many of you feel like now your tongues are being torn out? That you're not allowed to question this after his widow came up and said, I forgive the guy, by saying that she forgave the guy. It's pretty much lock, stock. The guy doesn't get a day in court. He's convicted of it. And then she forgives him and we move on. The narrative is set. Excuse me. How many of you feel like that now? That you're somehow not a patriot? But funny story, while all this was going on, more ships have arrived off the coast of Venezuela, allegedly to do drug interdiction, firing Hellfire missiles at boats with people in them that we have no idea what's in the boats. Just the government allegation of what's in the boats. And anybody now trying to say, hey, wait a minute, what the U.S. government saying isn't true. Sorry, they're being silenced and removed from YouTube. You see, Google has now admitted that the censorship under Biden came basically because it was Washington, D.C. Now Washington, D.C. is just doing the same thing on behalf of Donald Trump. And they're saying, well, we're going to reinstate banned YouTube accounts censored for political speech regarding COVID back under Biden. Why? Because Biden's no longer in power. But we're going to continue to censor other accounts that Donald Trump and their administration tells us to. I wonder how long before Florida's leaders' accounts start getting banned, start getting shadow banned, and have their traffic reduced. Because we came out and said that we're going to eliminate all child vaccine mandates in our state. We're not buying this nonsense bullshit about Tylenol. Because the president came back, instead of saying, well, congratulations, Florida, for doing the right thing, he talks about, he said, and I'm going to quote him here, I'm going to quote the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. A lot of people think that the COVID vax is amazing, you know. There are many people that believe strongly in that. Tylenol. Really? Tylenol. Okay. Couldn't possibly be paving the way for Project Stargate. You remember Project Stargate, the $500 billion investment? That the first thing Trump did when he got into office was come out and say he was going to double, triple, quadruple down on mRNA vaccines. 2 meetings in the first year in the Oval Office with Bill Gates. Project Warp Speed, the greatest achievement ever. And oh, by the way, if you give me a choice between believing Donald Trump, see here, Kirkland acetaminophen, the rapid release gels, guess who recommends that? Guess who recommends that? That's right. Patriot Nurse. I'll give you the link. In fact, this isn't the only video that she's done on this. She did another video more recently than this one that she actually had an affiliate link to Tylenol rapid release gels on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. But not to get too far off into the weeds. You see, this whole thing with Charlie Kirk, there has been, and you can blame the media, you can blame whoever you want for inciting violence, but don't say it was any different under Obama. Do you know there were over a dozen assassination plots against Obama that were foiled? A dozen. See, this idea that there's one side that's patriots and the other side that's, British. The people in charge now are starting to act a lot like the loyalists and less like the patriots from the Revolutionary War. There are a lot of people right now saying that we should just follow Trump and do what Trump says and do what the government says, and anybody fighting back, anybody pushing back, regardless of the opinion, they're a bunch of. I'll ask you this question: the people who fought the revolution, do you think they have more or less in common with Antifa than you? Do you think you have more in common with the patriots who fought back against the crowns? The crown, it really was the crowns at that time, because there was revolutions against the Spanish crown, the French, and the English at the time going on all in that same part of history. I think a lot of people would have to admit that the Concord Minutemen and those who were fighting against Great Britain, against England, these men had a lot more in common with Antifa than, that terrorist organization. Because that's what they did. That's how they fought the British. They fought the British like terrorists. This was the precursor of the Maquis, truly. How many of you remember the scene from The Patriot where Benjamin Martin's son, when they're out recruiting for the militia, out recruiting for the army, the Continental Army, his son, he looked at the men that were there. He said, "Father, these men, they're not the sort we need." And his father looked at him dead in the eye and said, "They're exactly the sort we need." Because they were basically thugs and criminals and people with nothing left to lose. But they wanted their freedom. And when Lord Cornwallis confronted his dragoons about why they couldn't win against these guys, he believed they were just like back in England, farmers, disarmed farmers with pitchforks. So what did the dragoons do? See, the dragoons, the Scottish, who had fought a war with England and lost, weren't all too fired up, excited about being sent overseas to fight then again on behalf of the British, having been defeated. So when they went over there, they had their own rules of war. They were going to get something out of it. How many of you remember the scene in this character? He's like, "Tell me about Ohio. You want me to fight this war for you? You want me to win this war for you, Lord Cornwallis? We're going to have to do some things that are nasty and mean and ugly and unsavory." Now does it start to make sense? Now does it start to make sense? Is there anybody out there who thought maybe she might have been, given that her family works for DOD, that maybe she was put in there to maybe distract? How many of you knew that he was going to hire her? She was actually applying for a job with Charlie Kirk when Charlie Kirk saw her and got all Twitter-pated and told her, well, I can't really hire you because I want to date you. And that's how they met. It wasn't by chance. So, I will leave it there and let folks ruminate on all of that information. It's very strange to see people who 5 minutes ago, back in 2016, how many of you saw the short that I posted with Marco Rubio quoting the Bible for a minute and a half and getting a standing ovation? Remember Little Marco, water bottle, Little Marco? So unqualified, Donald Trump now has made him 5th in the line of succession. 4th or 5th. There's the president, the vice president, Speaker of the House, Speaker pro tempore, and then, Secretary of State, 5th. He went from being totally unqualified in 2016 to now being 5th in the line of succession. Marco Rubio. This guy. So, God rest his soul. I hope his family finds peace. And once again, I'll pray for her. I hope that God finds a way, moves in her heart to see the truth, to see the light. If there was any malice before, let it be gone now. That sometimes, plans that look good or, look advantageous, I guess I should say, on paper, perhaps in the reality becomes something much worse. So, I will leave it there. He didn't do it. I promise you he didn't do it. No need for forgiveness if he didn't do it. God bless. Join us on Patreon. We're going to take this all apart and show exactly the tools, exactly the techniques that you need to see this stuff. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.